Cootes Paradise, Chapter 3, Psyched Out. Max steered the car down Fennel Ave. Ahead, Mohawk College loomed to his left, St. Joe's Hospital on his right. As he passed the hospital, he slowed and turned in the driveway. "This is your scary place?" asked Sophie. "It looks like it was just built. I think the zombies at the Starlight win the prize tonight." "We'll see," said Max. He slowed and killed the lights on the car. Being electric, it moved silently through the darkness. A couple 100 feet ahead, he turned down a small driveway. Out Sophie's window, a building came into view. Big, dark, and ominous. A chill ran down her spine, and for a moment she wished they were still at the drive-in. Max parked close, out of sight, and cut the engine. They sat for a moment, dissolved in the blackness. Finally, Sophie spoke. "What is this place?" "Century Manor," replied Max. "It used to be a psychiatric hospital. It's been closed for years. People say it's haunted." The Hamilton Asylum for the Insane was built in 1886 on the edge of the escarpment to house mentally ill patients. It encompassed several buildings, one of which, the East House, later known as Century Manor, became home for the criminally insane. Hundreds of patients were housed here and dealt with according to the prescribed treatments of the day, which included electroshock therapy and lobotomies. On weekends, folks from the lower city used to travel up the mountain to gawk at or taunt the patients on the grounds, on display like a twisted human zoo. Closed in 1995, all that remain are a few buildings scattered around the property, and Century Manor itself, a building with a past awaiting a future. Sophie, her eyes adjusted for the small ambient light of the city, took it in from the safety of the car. The windows and doors were boarded up, tagged with the witty sayings of the board. Hydro lines crept to the roof, but seemed to offer no juice to a place that appeared to swallow light. "Yep, it's creepy for sure. You win," said Sophie. "If you think it's creepy now, just wait till we're inside," said Max. "I'm not going in there, especially at night, mister. Besides, it's all boarded up, and I'm sure the doors are locked. So I guess that's that," Sophie concluded. "I heard my mom and dad talking about this place last week," said Max. "Apparently the city has big plans for it, wants to restore it or turn it into student residences or something. They were looking at pictures on Google. People find their way into places like this all the time. I bet we can too." Sophie felt that queasiness in her stomach that tells her when she's about to do something she shouldn't. Her parents always told her to follow her gut. Not sure if they meant it like that, but it had never failed her before. "I don't think we should, Max. What if we get caught? No one even knows we're here. There's no one around to catch us. And besides, what would they do if they caught us? Make us spend the night?" "Shut up," warned Sophie. "What if there's someone inside?" "There's no one here," offered Max in the most sincere, calm voice he could muster. Even so, his palms were sweaty, having never done anything as bold as trespassing. "Come on, Sophie, let's just scope it out. See if there's an opening or something, and maybe take a quick peek around. We never do stuff like this." You gotta admit, it's kind of exciting. And yes, Sophie had to admit, her heart was racing at the thought of just once being a bit bad. "Okay," she said reluctantly, "we'll go. But we're not staying." Max laughed. "We'll be out by Labor Day, I promise." "You're such a jerk." Max and Sophie got out of the car and began checking the doors, all locked. They made their way around the back of the building, going window to window, checking the plywood, every piece screwed firmly into place. Maybe this adventure was dead itself. But then Max spied a lower window that had been covered with a piece of particle board. The board was loose, having been pulled back at some point, revealing a sizable opening. Large enough to get through, that's for sure. Could it really be? Max crept over, surveying the gaping blackness. a hole roughly 2 feet by 3 feet, beckoning. An invitation that was simultaneously intriguing and terrifying. I dunno, Max. You said no one was here. It sure looks like someone wanted in, said Sophie. I bet no one checks on this place. This could have been open for weeks, replied Max. How are we supposed to see once we get in there? Just flick on the lights? Asked Sophie. You're too scared to think straight, said Max, pulling out his phone and turning on the flashlight. And I've still got 75% battery, too. I'll go first. Damn, thought Sophie. Max wriggled through the opening and dropped to the floor. Hang on, Sophie, he said. He shone his light around the empty room and saw a battered table nearby. Skid marks on the floor indicated that this had been used before as a way to reach the window from the inside. Convinced they could get back out once they got in, Max shone his light up at the window. Okay, come on through, he said. Sophie slithered through. Once inside, she took out her phone, flicked on the flashlight, and immediately took stock of her clothes. My shirt is ripped and my pants are filthy, she said. How am I going to explain this to Mom? Blame me, offered Max. I don't think blaming my ripped shirt on you is going to go over very good with my parents. Yeah, you're right. Anyway, we'll figure something out later. Let's have a look around. They made their way down the hall, peering into rooms as they passed. There wasn't much to see. The rooms were largely empty, save for some curtains or the odd chair. A layer of dust blanketed everything. At the end of the hall, a staircase led up. You first this time, said Max. As Sophie passed, Max leaned in and blew on the back of her neck. She froze. Oh, God, she whispered. Max tried to stifle a laugh, but couldn't help himself. You are such a jerk, Sophie yelled. The only melons you're ever going to grab are going to be at the supermarket if you don't stop. Shh, you'll wake the dead, replied Max, cracking himself up in the process. They made their way up to the main level, finding it to be much like the basement. They did find a candy bar wrapper that looked decidedly new. Max picked it up. A Mars bar. These ghosts have good taste. At the end of the main hall, they were greeted by another set of stairs. Really? Asked Sophie. I think I get the point. It's old and creepy, but there's nothing to see here. Let's go home. Soon. You'll probably never be back here. Gotta get our money's worth, said Max, who flew up the stairs. When he got to the top, he stopped cold. Hey, Sophie, can you, come up here, right now? Sophie arrived at the top of the stairs, where Max was looking down at muddy footprints. Fresh muddy footprints that came from the other end of the hall, then turned, then seemed to go in every direction at once. The chill that ran across Sophie's neck didn't come from her boyfriend this time. She was about to suggest that they leave now, but Max had already started down the hall. It stinks up here, said Max. Unlike the other levels, this one had a smell, musty and dank, like a wet basement. Why here? I bet the roof leaks, offered Sophie, trying to restore calm to her frayed nerves. She turned her phone light upwards toward the ceiling. As she did, she caught sight of something. Slowly, she brought the light down and illuminated a section of wall beside her. Her scream froze Max in his place. Blood. Blood and mud and wetness and chaos. Max, let's get out of here, please, she pleaded. We can't, he answered from down the hall. Why? Because we're not the only ones here. Cootes Paradise, a Hamilton Spectator and thespec.com serial podcast.